Colombia has in its territories the world's largest reserve of tropical rainforest and one of the oldest cities in the New World. You can visit pristine beaches, climb mountains, or wander into ancient ruins all at once. From the breathtaking beauty of Tayrona National Park to the vibrant streets of Medellin, Colombia is full of contrasts and wonder. It's a country where history, culture, and nature come together in the most unforgettable way. Colombia, what a land! If you've ever thought about traveling to a country that offers an extraordinary mix of landscapes, cultures, and histories, you might want to pack your bags and head straight there. This country isn't just a place on the map. It's an experience that promises to sweep you off your feet. You'll find everything from breathtaking beaches along the Caribbean and Pacific coasts to the towering Andes Mountains and dense Amazon rainforests. And here's the thing, Colombia is more than just its geography. It's a place where cultures collide in the most beautiful way. You can feel the pulse of indigenous peoples who were here long before, mixed with the heavy Spanish influence that began centuries ago. It was 20 years ago, and Colombia certainly did not feature on the bucket lists of travelers. It had quite an unflattering reputation, the type that wasn't exactly favorable between the dangerous political climate and drug cartels, a no-go zone for tourists. However, Colombia has gone a long way since then. The government worked day and night to refurbish its image so that it would no longer be a place of peril, but also a place that can compete with the best tourist destinations in the world. Now, Colombia opens its doors to visitors, and the world wakes up to take notice. Ask me if I think it's too little too late. I do not. There is so much to love about this country, and you will want to explore every corner of it. Imagine that. A small town, not even 4 hours by car from the capital, Bogota. You might think, small town? What's so special about that? But trust me, Villa de Leyva is really going back in time. Quaint colonial buildings and cobblestone streets seems to be just quaint at first glance. Then there's the town square, Plaza Mayor. This is not your ordinary plaza. The biggest, for one, in South America. Standing there, you'll feel as though history oozes through stone buildings. It's a place where people gather for festivals and other celebratory events, and that's really when it comes to life. The energy is infectious. But Villa de Leyva isn't just about the plaza. There is a house made entirely of terracotta that you absolutely have to see to believe. It's like something out of a fairy tale. The largest piece of pottery in the world. They name it the Terracotta House, and it has been one of the most outstanding attractions in town. You just can't help but be moved by the creativity and craftsmanship once you glance at it. I saw it, and I thought to myself that this was molded like some giant clay art piece. This is the kind of quirk charm Villa de Leyva offers. Then there's El Peñón de Guatape, this enormous boulder that simply thrusts out of the earth like a giant's thumb, has a mind-boggling 10 million tons. This boulder was a deity that people worshipped for centuries, and standing at the bottom of it, you can see why. There is something about it that is also sacred or otherworldly, but the best part is that you can climb it. I know, sounds insane, right? Who in their right mind would want to climb up a rock that's almost vertical? Well, they've built a staircase along the only crack in the otherwise smooth surface, and that's your path to the top. 649 steps to be exact. It's not easy to say the least, but once you reach the top, the view is worth every drop of sweat. You're looking out over a maze of lakes and islands that seem to stretch on forever. Just one of those views that makes you stop and take a deep breath. Perhaps pinch yourself to see if it's really true. Guatape is a postcard come to life, and if you're into photography, this is the place where you'll get some of the best shots of your life. This is a bustling Caribbean coast city that could simply make any traveler's dream. However, if you've watched the movie Romancing the Stone at all, You might remember that the movie adventure begins in Cartagena. Perhaps her adventures was a little wild and crazy, but today's travelers will find a city that is full of history and bursting with modern culture. Cartagena was one of the main seaports of the Caribbean in the 16th and 17th centuries. As such, it was a prime target of pirates, but was very well fortified to protect it from such threats. Most of these fortifications remain standing to this day. There are outlines of history in passageways of the old town. Colonial buildings, museums, palaces, churches are all impressive and carry a story at each step. Yet, Cartagena is not some old relic of the past. It's a vibrant and saturated city where at night, and when the sun goes down, nightlife comes alive again. From street markets to expensive restaurants, this city can give visitors many good moments. But Colombia isn't all cities and rocks. The boisterous, wild, untamed side of it is just as appealing to the adventurous. Let me take you to San Gil, which has been crowned the adventure sports capital of Colombia. Established in 1689, it is for people who have it in them to challenge their limits. Thrill seekers looking to indulge in some bungee jumping, paragliding, whitewater rafting, or any of the other reasons to have a rip-roaring good time in San Gil are surrounded by some of the most stunning natural scenery that can be found here in Colombia. Nothing is more thrilling than rafting down a Class 5 rapids, one of the most challenging rafting experiences on Earth. It may not be for the faint of heart, but for the adventurous soul, it would be a learning experience that would never be forgotten. All that excitement can make you want to slow things down a little and appreciate Colombia's more sedate side. And that is precisely what Tayrona National Park has to offer. It is a stretch of semi-woody tropical forest dotted along the northern Caribbean coast, with some of the world's most glorious beaches. One of the park's favorite spots is La Piscina, a natural lagoon just nice to swim in since a protective reef keeps the waters calm. But beaches aren't all the park has to offer. Miles of hiking trails wind through the park with spectacular views of the Caribbean as you walk. And if you happen to be lucky, you might catch a glimpse of some of the park's wild animals and their tropical birds and monkeys. And Colombia's wonders just keep coming. A country transformed if unimaginable, unless one visits here. Medellin comes to mind. If you have heard of Medellin before, it was probably for all the wrong reasons. During the 1980s and early 1990s, Medellin was perhaps one of the most dangerous cities in the world. The notorious cocaine cartel, led by Pablo Escobar, was based here. Of course, all that has happened long ago. As if by magic, since the death of Escobar in 1993, the city turned over completely, and today, Medellin is a successful modern metropolis that stands out for its innovations and artworks. The best example of this is found in Comuna 13, the neighborhood that was once the seat of crime, now becoming an artistic center full of colorful graffiti and street art. And it also says a lot about people and how the city itself can bounce back and rise above its troubled past. Colombia is just getting started, and if you thought the places we've explored so far were impressive, hold on, because there's so much more to see. One of the hidden gems in this country, tucked away from the more touristy areas, is Popayan. If you're into history, architecture, or just want to experience a city that feels like stepping into a time capsule, Popayan is a must-see. It's often referred to as the White City, and for good reason. The colonial buildings here are pristinely whitewashed, giving the entire town a very distinct and almost dreamy feel. As you walk around, you'll notice the incredible attention to detail in the architecture, which has been preserved for centuries. Popayan isn't just about pretty buildings though. It's known for its churches, some of the most beautiful and historic in all of Colombia. These churches aren't just places of worship, they're a testament to the town's rich religious heritage. It's no wonder that Popayan is often considered Colombia's religious center. One of the best times to visit is during Semana Santa, or Holy Week, when the entire city comes alive with parades and religious celebrations. Thousands of people fill the streets, starting from the iconic Iglesia Santo Domingo, and it's truly a sight to behold. Even if you're not religious, the energy and atmosphere during this time are infectious. It's like the whole town is participating in one big, solemn, yet joyful celebration of their faith and culture. But that's not the only thing Popayan has going for it. The surrounding landscape is just as impressive as the city itself. Nestled between various mountain ranges, the town is a great starting point for those looking to explore Colombia's more remote, natural beauty. Whether it's hiking, exploring waterfalls, or just breathing in the fresh mountain air, Popayan offers a perfect blend of history and nature. Just an hour's drive from Bogota is Zipaquirá, a town that's become famous for its salt mines. I know what you're thinking, salt mines? How exciting can that be? But trust me, Zipaquirá is anything but ordinary. This town is home to the Salt Cathedral, and calling it impressive would be an understatement. Imagine a Catholic church that's been carved almost entirely out of salt within a defunct mine. The result is a breathtaking underground cathedral that feels like something straight out of a fantasy novel. Walking through the Salt Cathedral is an unforgettable experience. The air is cool and slightly salty, and the low lighting creates an almost ethereal atmosphere. It's hard to believe that this massive structure was once a working mine. Every Sunday, nearly 3,000 parishioners come here to attend Mass, and even if you're not religious, sitting in on a service is something special. The acoustics alone are worth the visit, as the sound of the hymns echoes off the salt walls in a way that makes the entire space feel otherworldly. You'll want to take your time exploring the various chapels and sculptures carved into the salt. It's truly a work of art. The Salt Cathedral isn't the only thing Zipaquirá has to offer. The town itself is charming, with cobblestone streets, colorful buildings, and a lively plaza where locals gather. It's the kind of place where you can wander around for hours, stopping for a coffee at a local cafe or chatting with the friendly residents. There's a certain peacefulness to Zipaquirá that makes it a perfect day trip from the hustle and bustle of Bogota. Speaking of spiritual places, let's talk about Lajas Sanctuary. If there's one place in Colombia that will leave you absolutely speechless, it's this stunning Gothic Revival-style church. Perched in a canyon on the Guatape River near the Ecuadorian border, Las Lajas looks like it was plucked straight out of a fairy tale. The church itself is built on a 130-foot high bridge that spans the river, and with a waterfall twinkling besides it, the whole scene is nothing short of magical. Las Lajas Sanctuary was built between 1916 and 1949, and it holds a special place in Colombia's religious and cultural history. The story goes that a miraculous sighting of the Virgin Mary happened here, and since then, it's become one of the country's most popular pilgrimage sites. Even if you're not religious, you can't help but be moved by the sheer beauty of this place. The architecture is breathtaking, with its tall spires and intricate details that make it look more like a castle than a church. And then there's the setting itself. Surrounded by mountains and with the river rushing below, it's the kind of place that makes you feel like you're standing on the edge of the world. Whether you're here to admire the architecture, take in the views, or learn about history, Las Lajas is one of those places that stays with you long after you leave. And while you're in the area, it's worth exploring the surrounding countryside. The region is filled with small villages, hiking trails, and natural beauty that will make you fall even more in love with Colombia. Now, if you're a fan of archaeology, Colombia has something that will really blow your mind. The San Agustin Archaeological Park is one of the most fascinating historic sites in the country. Located in the eastern foothills of the Colombian Massif, not far from Popayan, this sprawling site is home to a large collection of pre-Columbian sculptures and monuments. When you walk through the park, you'll come across stone statues of human figures, animals, and mythological creatures, some of which are smiling. while others are snarling. These sculptures are thought to have religious significance, though much of the history behind them is still a mystery. As you continue to explore Colombia, you'll realize that the country is full of surprises. From its rich cultural heritage to its stunning natural beauty, there is something here for everyone. Whether you're exploring the colonial streets of Popayan, marveling at the salt cathedral in Zipaquirá, or standing in awe of the majestic Las Lajas Sanctuary, each place offers its own unique experience. Colombia's wonders just keep coming. After the buzzing excitement of Bogota, I think it's time we take things down a notch and venture into a more serene, almost magical part of the country, Tayrona National Park. Trust me, if you're looking for the perfect blend of beach, jungle, and a sense of untouched nature, this place is nothing short of paradise. It's one of those spots where the Caribbean Sea meets the lush green forests, creating a picture-perfect setting that feels like it belongs on a postcard. Getting to Tayrona National Park is an adventure in itself. You can either hike through trails that weave through the dense jungle or take a horseback ride, which, let's be honest, adds a little bit of a Wild West vibe to the whole experience. The moment you arrive on the beach, it's like stepping into a hidden corner of the world where the rest of civilization doesn't exist. Pristine white sand stretches out before you, and the sound of the waves crashing against the shore is all you need to remind you that you're miles away from any hustle and bustle. One of the most popular spots in the park is La Piscina. It's this natural lagoon sheltered by a reef, which makes it perfect for swimming. The water is so calm and clear that you can easily spend hours just floating there, taking in the surrounding beauty. And if you're feeling adventurous, there are plenty of hiking trails that offer some stunning views of the Caribbean coastline. As you wander along these trails, you'll come across all sorts of wildlife, colorful birds, monkeys swinging from the trees, and even the occasional iguana sunbathing on the rocks. The park is a haven for nature lovers, and it's one of those places where you can really disconnect and immerse yourself in the beauty of Colombia's natural world. But Tayrona isn't just about beaches and wildlife. The park also has a deep cultural significance, particularly for the Colombian indigenous communities. The park is home to the Tayrona people, an indigenous group that has lived in this region for centuries. Their ancient ruins, known as the Lost City, or Ciudad Perdida, are hidden deep within the jungle, and visiting this site is like stepping back in time. It's a bit of a trek to get there, but the journey is worth it. The Lost City is older than Machu Picchu, and while it doesn't get the same amount of attention, it's every bit as awe-inspiring. As you explore the ancient stone terraces and pathways, it's easy to imagine what life was like for the Tayrona people hundreds of years ago. If you haven't heard of this city, you're in for a treat. Cartagena is one of those places that effortlessly blends the old with the new. On one hand, you've got the historic walled city with its cobblestone streets, colorful colonial buildings, and towering churches. On the other, you've got the modern skyline of Boca Grande, where sleek, high-rise hotels and resorts overlook the Caribbean Sea. It's this mix of old-world charm and modern luxury that makes Cartagena so irresistible to travelers. Walking through the old town is like stepping into a different era. The entire area is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's not hard to see why. Every building, every street corner feels like it has a story to tell. You can't help but to be drawn to the vibrant colors that adorn the facades of the colonial houses. Yellows, blues, pinks. It's like the city is alive with color. And the balconies. Almost every building has a charming little balcony draped with flowers, giving the entire town a romantic fairy tale feel. It's the kind of place where you could get lost for hours, just wandering through the narrow streets, taking in the sights and sounds. One of the things that make Cartagena stand out is its history as a key port city during the colonial period. Back in the 16th and 17th century, Cartagena was one of the most important cities in the Caribbean. It was a major trading hub, but it was also a target for pirates, which is why the city is surrounded by massive fortifications. These walls are still standing today, and they're one of the best preserved examples of colonial military architecture in the Americas. You can even walk along the walls, getting a panoramic view of both the old town and the sea. It's a reminder of Cartagena's strategic importance during a time when the seas were ruled by pirates and European powers were fighting for control of the New World. And if you're a fan of history, you can't visit Cartagena without stopping by the Castillo San Felipe de Barajas. This massive fortress was built by the Spanish to protect the city from invaders, and it's an impressive sight. Walking through its tunnels and climbing to the top, you can almost feel the weight of history bearing down on you. The views from the top are incredible. You can see the entire city stretched out before you, with the Caribbean shimmering in the distance. But Cartagena isn't all about history. The city is also known for its vibrant nightlife and delicious food. The old town comes alive at night, with restaurants and bars spilling out onto the streets, offering everything from fresh seafood to traditional Colombian dishes. And if you're into dancing, this is the place to be. Cartagena has a strong Afro-Caribbean influence, and the rhythms of salsa, cumbia, and champeta fill the air as the night goes on. It's impossible not to get swept up in the energy of the city. As we wrap up this leg of our journey, I have to say that Colombia is a place that constantly surprises you. From the wild beauty of Tayrona National Park to the historic charm of Cartagena, there's something here for every type of traveler. The more time you spend in Colombia, the more you realize that this country has so much to offer, and each destination feels like a new chapter in a book you never want to put down. As we continue exploring Colombia, it's hard not to be amazed by the country's diversity. Every place feels like a world of its own, yet somehow they all come together to create a unified experience that's distinctly Colombian. After soaking in the history and coastal charm of Cartagena, let's take a different turn and head toward the heart of Colombia's adventure sports scene, San Gil. Now, if you're an adrenaline junkie or just someone who likes a bit of excitement, this place will definitely get your heart racing. San Gil is often called the adventure capital of Colombia, and it more than lives up to the title. Nestled in the Santander department, this small town has become a hotspot for thrill seekers from all over the world. What's great about San Gil is that it has a perfect balance. If you're looking for high-octane activities like bungee jumping, paragliding, or whitewater rafting, you're in the right place. But if you prefer something a little less intense, there are plenty of beautiful landscapes to explore, like waterfalls and caves, where you can take things at your own pace. The first thing that comes to mind when I think of San Gil is whitewater rafting. This town is famous for its rivers, especially the Rio Suarez, which is known for offering some of the most thrilling rafting experiences in the world. If you're up for the challenge, you can take on Class 5 rapids, which are as intense as they sound. It's not for the faint of heart, but if you're craving an adrenaline rush, there's nothing quite like bouncing along the roaring rapids with the stunning Colombian countryside rushing past you. And if that sounds a little too extreme, don't worry. There are gentler rafting options on the Rio Fonte, where you can still enjoy the beauty of the river, but without quite so much heart-pounding action. San Gil is also a great place for paragliding. Imagine soaring high above the mountains and valleys, with the wind in your face and the world spread out below you. The views are absolutely breathtaking. You can see for miles, with the rolling hills, rivers, and tiny towns dotting the landscape below. It's one of those experiences that really makes you appreciate the natural beauty of Colombia, and it's so peaceful that you almost forget how high you are up. Until you look down, of course. But San Gil isn't all about extreme sports. The area surrounding the town is filled with natural wonders that are perfect for exploring. One of the highlights is the Chicamocha Canyon. This massive canyon is one of the largest in the world, and it's a sight to behold. You can hike around the area, take in the views from the rim, or even ride the cable car that takes you across the canyon. The views are incredible, especially at sunset when the whole landscape is bathed in golden light. If you're more into exploring underground, San Gil has something for you too. The Cueva de la Vaca, or Cow's Cave, is a popular spot for spelunkers. It's a bit of a tight squeeze in some places, but it's an adventure like no other. As you make your way through the cave's narrow passages, you'll come across underground rivers, fascinating rock formations, and chambers that seem to stretch on forever. It's the kind of adventure that takes you deep into the earth and makes you feel like you're discovering a hidden world. After all that excitement, it's nice to take a break and explore the town of San Gil itself. Despite its reputation as an adventure hub, San Gil is still very much a laid-back colonial town at heart. The main plaza is a great place to sit back, relax, and watch the world go by. The colonial architecture gives the town a charming, timeless feel, and there are plenty of cafes and restaurants where you can sample some local delicacies, like arepas and tamales, after a long day of adventure. It's the perfect place to unwind before diving into your next activity. Next on our journey is Bogota, which we touched on earlier, but this time we'll take a deeper look into one of its most fascinating aspects, its art scene. Bogota may be the political and cultural heart of Colombia, but it's also becoming known for something else: street art. This city is an open-air gallery with murals and graffiti covering walls, bridges, and buildings across the city. But this isn't just random tagging or vandalism. Bogota's street art is a powerful form of expression, a way for the people to tell their stories, protest injustices, and celebrate their culture. What's particularly interesting about Bogota's street art scene is that it's legal. Well, mostly. In 2011, the government relaxed the rules around street art, and since then, the city has become a canvas for both local and international artists. One of the best ways to experience it is by taking a street art tour. As you wander through neighborhoods like La Candelaria and Zipaquirá, you'll come across murals that are several stories tall, as well as smaller, more intricate pieces tucked away in alleyways. Each piece has a story, and many of them are linked to Colombia's complex political and social history. What makes Bogota's street art so special is that it's constantly changing. New murals go up all the time, replacing old ones, so every visit to the city feels like a fresh experience. It's a living, breathing art gallery, and the stories told on the walls reflect the city's vibrant, evolving culture. After you've had your fill of street art, Bogota offers plenty of other ways to get into Colombia's culture. The city is home to some of the country's best museums, including the famous Gold Museum, which houses an impressive collection of pre-Columbian gold artifacts. This museum is an emblem into the history of Colombia's indigenous cultures long before the Spanish arrived. The craftsmanship on display is incredible, and as you walk through the exhibits, you'll gain a newfound appreciation for the artistry and skill of these ancient civilizations. But if you're looking for something a bit more offbeat, the Botero Museum is a must-visit. It's dedicated to the works of Fernando Botero, one of Colombia's most famous artists, known for his unique style of painting and sculpting round, exaggerated figures. Whether it's his paintings of people or his sculptures of animals, everything in Botero's world is delightfully plump. There's something playful and whimsical about his art, but it also offers a deeper commentary on society and politics. It's a fun museum to explore, and it's sure to leave you with a smile on your face. Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground, but Colombia's wonders just keep coming. One of the final stops on our journey is the Zona Cafeteria. We've touched on it briefly, but there's so much more to say about this region. The Zona Cafeteria, or Coffee Triangle, is not only the heart of Colombia's coffee production, but also one of the most beautiful regions in the country. The rolling green hills, dotted with coffee plantations and framed by the towering Andes, create a landscape that feels almost otherworldly. This region is famous for producing some of the best coffee in the world, and visiting the coffee farms is an experience you won't want to miss. Many of the farms offer tours where you can see the entire coffee making process, from picking the beans to roasting them. And, of course, you'll get to sample some of the freshest, most delicious coffee you've ever tasted. There's something incredibly satisfying about sipping a cup of coffee while standing in the very fields where it was grown. But it's not just about the coffee. The Zona Cafeteria is also home to some charming little towns like Salento and Manizales. These towns are the epitome of Colombian hospitality, with friendly locals, colorful streets, and vibrant town squares where life seems to slow down a little. You can spend your days exploring the nearby coffee farms, hiking in the Cocora Valley, or just relaxing in a hammock, taking in the view. Picking up from where we left off, we've been diving deep into the incredible experiences Colombia has to offer, and each place seems more fascinating than the last. We've gone from exploring the vibrant transformation of Medellin to the peaceful charm of Guatape. But trust me, there is still so much more waiting to be uncovered. Colombia is one of those countries that keeps surprising you, no matter how far you've traveled through it. Next on our journey is one of the most awe-inspiring places in the country, Las Lajas Sanctuary. I have to say it, this is one of the most breathtaking churches I've ever seen, and not just because of its architecture. The setting is so dramatic that it feels almost unreal, like something out of a fantasy novel. You'll find Las Lajas perched above a gorge, straddling a bridge that spans the Guatape River, not far from the border with Ecuador. The way the church seems to rise out of the cliffside, with the sound of the river rushing below and a waterfall trickling nearby, makes for a sight that will leave you speechless. The first time I saw Las Lajas Sanctuary, I remember just standing there for a moment, taking it all in. The architecture is this stunning Gothic revival style, with tall spires that reach toward the sky, intricate stained glass windows, and delicate stone carvings that seem to shimmer in the light. And then there's the backdrop, the canyon walls, with lush greenery and the river below. It's one of those places where nature and human craftsmanship come together in the most perfect way. Las Lajas Sanctuary isn't just beautiful, it's also steeped in history and legend. The story goes that, back in the 18th century, a local woman and her daughter saw an image of the Virgin Mary appear on one of the canyon walls. Since then, the site has been a place of pilgrimage, with people from all over Colombia and beyond making the journey to pray at this holy site. Even if you're not religious, there's something deeply spiritual about the atmosphere here. We're moving to a place that's a little more lively, Zona Cafeteria. I know we've already touched on this coffee-growing region before, but it's worth diving a bit deeper because there's just so much to experience here. The Zona Cafeteria is not just the heart of Colombia's coffee industry, but it's also a place where you can truly immerse yourself in the rural charm of the country. There's something about this region that feels so authentically Colombian, from the rolling hills covered in coffee plants to the brightly colored houses and the warm, welcoming smiles of the locals. One of the best ways to experience the Zona Cafeteria is by staying at one of the many coffee fincas or farms that dot the region. These fincas offer tours where you can learn all about how the coffee is grown, harvested, and processed. You'll get to walk through the coffee fields, pick ripe coffee cherries straight from the trees, and see the whole process from bean to cup. And, of course, you'll get to sample some of the freshest, most delicious coffee you've ever tasted. There's something incredibly satisfying about sipping a cup of coffee while overlooking the very fields where it was grown. But the Zona Cafeteria isn't just about coffee. The region is also home to some of the most beautiful landscapes in Colombia, and it's a great place for outdoor adventurers. One of the most popular activities here is hiking through the Cocora Valley, which is famous for its towering wax palms, the tallest palm trees in the world. Walking through the valley, with these giant trees towering above you, feels almost surreal. The contrast between the green rolling hills and the sky-high palms is unlike anything you'll see elsewhere. Another must-visit spot in Zona Cafeteria is the town of Salento. This charming little town is the perfect place to base yourself as you explore the region. Salento has a laid-back bohemian vibe with brightly painted houses, cobblestone streets, and plenty of cozy cafes where you can relax with a cup of coffee or a cold beer. The main square is a hub of activity, with locals and tourists alike gathering to chat, play music, and enjoy the atmosphere. It's the kind of place where you can easily spend a few days just wandering around, soaking up the local culture and enjoying the slower pace of life. As we continue to explore Colombia, it becomes clear that this country is truly a treasure trove of experiences. From the stunning architecture of Las Lajas to the ancient wonders of San Agustin and the rural charm of the Zona Cafeteria, every corner of Colombia has something unique to offer. It's a place where history, culture, and nature come together in the most beautiful way, creating a travel experience that's unlike anywhere else in the world. We've been exploring some of Colombia's most breathtaking spots, from the ancient statues of San Agustin to the coffee-scented hills of Zona Cafeteria. It feels like we've already seen so much, but there's still more of this incredible country to discover. One thing that makes Colombia so special is that every region has its own unique flavor. So now, let's get into one of the country's most famous national parks, Tayrona National Park. Tayrona National Park is like a slice of paradise on Colombia's northern Caribbean coast. Imagine this. You've got the turquoise waters of the Caribbean Sea on one side and the lush green mountains of the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta on the other. This combination of beach and jungle is what makes Tayrona such a magical place. Whether you're a beach bum or a nature lover, Tayrona offers the best of both worlds. The park is massive, covering more than 150 square kilometers of land and sea, so there's plenty of space to explore. Getting to Tayrona feels like the start of an adventure in itself. Most people arrive by hiking through the jungle, following winding trails that take you deeper into the forest. The sound of birds chirping and the rustling of leaves surround you as you make your way toward the coast. It's a peaceful, almost meditative experience. And then, just when you think the jungle will go on forever, you catch the first glimpse of the beach. White sand stretching out in front of you with a bright blue ocean beyond. It's the kind of moment that stops you in your tracks. One of the most famous beaches in Tayrona is Campo San Juan, and it's easy to see why. Picture this, a crescent-shaped beach lined with palm trees, with a small hill jutting out into the sea. On top of the hill is a small hut where you can climb up and take in the view. It's the perfect place to relax after your hike and soak in the beauty around you. The water here is crystal clear, perfect for swimming or just floating around as you stare up at the sky. What's great about Tayrona is that it's not just about the beaches, though those are pretty spectacular. The park is also home to a wide variety of wildlife. As you explore the trails, you might spot monkeys swinging from the trees, colorful birds fluttering through the branches, and even the occasional iguana sunning itself on a rock. It's like walking through your own personal wildlife documentary. And if you're lucky, you might even come across a jaguar, though they're pretty elusive. But Tayrona is more than just a beautiful landscape. It's also a place with deep cultural significance. The park is located in the ancestral land of the Tayrona people, an indigenous group that has lived in the region for centuries. You can still feel their presence in the park, especially when you visit Pueblito, an ancient Tayrona village hidden deep in the jungle. The village is made up of stone terraces, paths and houses, and as you wander through the ruins, you can't help but imagine what life was like for the people who once lived here. It's a powerful reminder that this land has a long and rich history, one that goes far beyond its natural beauty. After spending time in Tayrona, you'll feel like you've stepped into another world, one where nature reigns supreme and time moves at its own pace. It's the perfect place to disconnect from the hustle and bustle of modern life and reconnect with the natural world. From the beaches of Tayrona, let's head to another of Colombia's gems, Bogota. I know we touched on Bogota earlier, but this city deserves a deeper look. Bogota is Colombia's capital, and it's one of the largest cities in South America. It's a place where old meets new, where history and modernity collide in the most fascinating way. One of the things I love about Bogota is its energy. It's a city that's constantly moving, constantly changing, but at the same time, it holds on tightly to its past. One of the best places to experience this mix of old and new is La Candelaria, Bogota's historic center. Walking through La Candelaria feels like stepping back in time. The cobblestone streets are lined with colorful colonial buildings, and there's a sense of history in the air. But it's not a place stuck in the past. The neighborhood is also home to a thriving art scene, with street art on nearly every corner and plenty of galleries and museums to explore. Speaking of museums, Bogota is home to one of the most fascinating collections of pre-Columbian gold artifacts in the world, the Gold Museum. This museum is an absolute must-see when you're in the city. As you walk through its exhibits, you'll get a sense of the incredible craftsmanship and artistry of Colombians' indigenous cultures. The pieces are intricate and beautiful, and many of them have deep spiritual significance. It's amazing to think about the skill and time that went into creating these objects, and as you move through the museum, you'll gain a deeper appreciation for the rich history of this region. Another must-visit spot in Bogota is Monserrate, a mountain that towers over the city. You can either hike to the top or take a cable car, and once you're there, the views are absolutely breathtaking. From the summit, you can see the entire city spread out below, with the Andes Mountains in the distance. It's one of those views that makes you realize just how massive Bogota really is. There is also a beautiful church at the top of the mountain, and it's a popular pilgrimage site for locals. But Bogota isn't all about history and culture. It's also a city with a thriving food scene. Colombian cuisine is diverse and delicious, and Bogota is the perfect place to visit and try some of the country's most famous dishes. Whether it's a hearty bowl of ajiaco, a traditional potato soup, or a plate of bandeja paisa, a feast of rice, beans, meat, plantains, and avocado, Bogota's food will definitely leave you satisfied. The city is also known for its markets, where you can sample fresh fruits, vegetables, and street food to your heart's content. After exploring Bogota, you might be in the mood for a little more adventure, and for that, we're heading back to the Andes Mountains. Just outside the city, you'll find some of the most stunning landscapes in the country. One of the most popular spots for outdoor activities is the Tingaza National Park. This park is home to rugged mountains, crystal clear lakes, and a wide variety of wildlife. Whether you're into hiking, birdwatching, or just soaking in the beauty of nature, Tingaza has something for everyone. One of the highlights of visiting Tingaza is seeing the paramo ecosystem. The paramo is a unique type of high-altitude tundra that's only found in a few places in the world, and Colombia has some of the largest and most well-preserved paramos. Walking through the paramo feels like you've been transported to another planet. The landscape is dotted with strange-looking plants like the frailejones, which look like something out of a sci-fi movie. And the air is so crisp and clean that it feels like you're breathing pure oxygen. It's the perfect place to disconnect and just enjoy the peace and quiet of the mountains. By now, you've probably realized that Colombia is a country that truly has it all. From vibrant cities filled with history to remote, untouched natural beauty, every part of Colombia offers something special. But there's still one more incredible place we need to explore, a destination that combines both adventure and rich culture, the Lost City, or as it's known in Spanish, Ciudad Perdida. Ciudad Perdida is one of Colombia's most awe-inspiring archaeological sites, hidden deep within the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta mountains. It's older than Machu Picchu, yet much less visited, making it feel like a real hidden gem. Reaching the lost city isn't as simple as driving up and snapping a few photos. No, getting here is an adventure all on its own. It's a multi-day trek through dense jungle, over rivers and up steep mountainsides. But the journey is half the reward, and every step brings you closer to something truly magical. The trek to Ciudad Perdida starts in the small town of El Memi, where you'll meet your guides and fellow trekkers. From the moment you set off, you're plunged into the wilderness. The trail takes you through thick forests, across hanging bridges and up steep paths, all while surrounded by the sounds of the jungle. Birds calling from the treetops, the rustle of leaves, and the distant roar of waterfalls. It's a challenging hike, but the natural beauty around you is more than enough to keep you going. And there's a real sense of camaraderie that forms among the group as you all push yourselves to reach the lost city. One of the most memorable parts of the trek is the opportunity to interact with the indigenous Kogi people who live in the area. The Kogi are the descendants of the Tayrona civilization, the same people who built Ciudad Perdida centuries ago. Their connection to the land is profound, and learning about their way of life adds another layer of depth to the experience. They see the world through a spiritual lens, where nature and humanity are deeply intertwined, and you can't help but feel a sense of reverence when you speak with them. For the Kogi, Ciudad Perdida isn't just an archaeological site, it's a sacred place, a living part of their heritage. After several days of trekking, you finally reach the steps leading up to Ciudad Perdida. And trust me, those steps are no joke. There are more than 1,200 of them, carved into the mountainside by the Tayrona people. But as you climb higher, the anticipation builds. The trees start to thin out, and suddenly you're standing at the edge of an ancient city, perched high in the mountains and hidden from the rest of the world. The view is breathtaking, with terraces stretching out in front of you, each one connected by stone paths that seem to wind their way into the clouds. Standing there, surrounded by the ruins of the ancient city, you can't help but feel a sense of awe. Ciudad Perdida was once a thriving city, home to thousands of people, and even though it's been abandoned for centuries, it still feels alive. The stone terraces, plazas, and circular platforms are all remarkably well preserved, and as you explore the site, you can imagine what life must have been like here all those years ago. It's quiet now, with only the sounds of jungle around you, but there's a sense of history that lingers in the air, as if the city's former inhabitants are still watching over it. The experience of visiting Ciudad Perdida is one that stays with you long after you leave. It's not just the beauty of the place or the adventure of getting there. It's the connection to a culture and a history that's still very much alive. It's a reminder that Colombia is a place where the past and present are always intertwined, where ancient civilizations continue to shape the world we live in today. As we come to the end of our journey, it's hard not to reflect on everything Colombia has shown us. From the bustling streets of Bogota and Medellin to the remote jungles of Tayrona and the Lost City, this country has a way of captivating you at every turn. It's a place that invites you to explore, to push your limits, and to discover the unexpected. And no matter how much you see, there is always more waiting just around the corner. Colombia is a country of contrasts, mountains and beaches, cities and jungles, ancient ruins and modern art. But it's also a place where all these elements come together to create something truly unique. The people, the landscape, the history, it all blends together in a way that's hard to describe, but impossible to forget. So, as we end this journey, I can't help but feel like we've only just scratched the surface. Colombia has so much to offer, and no matter how many times you visit, there's always something new to discover. Whether you're seeking adventure, culture, history, or just a chance to relax and soak in the beauty of the natural world, Colombia has it all. And once you've experienced it for yourself, you'll understand why so many people fall in love with this incredible country. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.